Shirley Temple is alive and well, people. Well, hello! It's been a couple of weeks. I'm not going to say that I didn't get bogged down with other things because that's not true. And I have a crippling fright of filming anything while my husband is home because stage fright is real. Did I sing in choir in high school? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Did I perform in a school musical in high school? Yeah. What about middle school and elementary school? Yep, those too. But am I still afraid to let anybody hear me when a camera is rolling? Yes! I wanted to show my everyday routine, and my everyday routine typically consists of 2 days instead of 1. I have a day where I pin my hair up and let it sit for the whole day, and then I have a day where I brush it out and let it down. Now, to make it more interesting, today is going to be more 1940s. Tomorrow is going to be more 1950s. So if you want to skip ahead and see the 1950s section, that's totally fine. If you want to cut the video short and only look at the 1940s section, that's totally fine. Now this is day 1. I'm going to be pinning up my hair and then covering it with a scarf so that it stays in place, it stays nice, and then I'll sleep in the scarf and take everything down tomorrow to do the 1950s look. This is typically what I do on a week-to-week basis, is I will pin up my hair, I will let my hair down, and then sometimes on a 3rd and 4th day, I'll just go ahead and I will incorporate an updo, whether it's a poodle or braids or something that kind of pulls all the hair up off my head because I still have volume from the curl. But because my hair doesn't hold a curl for more than like a day and a half, I go ahead and I do an updo because it looks a little bit nicer. I will be using a curling iron, which I know is not the most accurate way of curling my hair. I have done pin curls before. I like pin curls. But in this case, I want to do heat because here's the thing that I noticed with heat. When you use a heat source to curl your hair, it's easy to use a heat source again in a couple of days to recurl and the curls won't go flat. What I've noticed when I do pin curls with a wet set, it's a little more difficult to recurl that hair. It's hard to curl it with heat. It's hard to recurl it when it's wet without rewashing your hair. And my hair can't be washed over and over again because I have a very sensitive scalp. So I go ahead and I use the heat, which I know is not the best for your hair. I try to protect my hair as much as I possibly can, but you do what you gotta do. So the first thing you do is, if you have it, you're gonna put some heat protectant in. I'm fresh out of heat protectant, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna go for it. I know, it's terrible. I'll cut my hair and let it regrow at some point and it'll be beautiful again. All right, so I'm gonna go in with my curling iron and I'm gonna section off my hair first. I'm gonna take quite a large amount off and just leave a little bit in the back and put everything up into a bun. So fashionable. And then I'm gonna split it in the middle, comb out, and section off. Now, I like to do smaller sections because the smaller your sections are, the easier it's going to be for them to hold a curl. Especially at the back of my neck and the back of my head, I want a good lasting curl. Okay, so now I have a ringlet that I just made, which is awesome. And I'm gonna twist it around my finger like so, just like it was twisted on its own. I'm not gonna try to break that natural curl. And I'm gonna go ahead, twist it all the way up to my scalp. And now I'm going to take a bobby pin. Bobby pin! And I'm going to go ahead and pin it in place. One down, around, I don't know, 30 or 40 to go. Okay, so here's how I use my curling iron, because my hair is a little bit different from others. Others' hair is different from mine. This is the method that works best for me. So I have my curling iron, not a wand, a curling iron. I want the ends to be curled because you can't get a nice flip, and I'll show you what I mean, if your ends aren't curled. And then I go ahead and I put my hair in and I wrap it around and then continue in and up. And that typically gives me a pretty good ringlet with the ends curled, with the top end curled. Everything is nice and curled and you aren't missing any pieces, which is really good. And then it allows me to swoop it up and pin it in without having to re-texturize it. If you've ever done this before, I'm sure you have had a day where your curls weren't coming out exactly right and you say, well, you know what? I don't care. I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm going to rewrap all those cool warm curls around my fingers. And guess what happens? They get dysmorphed a little bit and they don't look right and they don't brush out right. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna finish this row. All right, first row is finished on the back of my head. Now I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna let out another chunk of hair. I usually do about 4 layers in all when I'm pulling out hair and pinning it and putting it up. And that typically works pretty well for me. But if you have really thick hair, you can do more layers. If you have really thin hair, you could do less. I'm gonna brush this out. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna alternate. So I'm gonna start at the back first because that's usually easiest for me. And instead of curling up, like I did with the bottom row, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna curl down. Okay, the time has come for the last layer, and I feel like this is an important distinction. We alternated curling up, curling down, curling up, and now we're at the top of my head. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna pull and separate hair just like that. And then going ahead and splitting this in half. And then clipping it out of the way. Okay. So now I have a small section in front of my face. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it into strips and I'm gonna curl inward. And again, try to make it so that you're doing it in such a way that the curl naturally wraps around your finger. And for these sections, I like a big bounce near my face. So I try to tend to do sections a little bit smaller than I would on the rest of my head. Kind of like when I do the back of my head by the nape of my neck, because I want those curls to last and I want them to be a little bit springier. So now I'm going to take the other section that we separated and I'm going to curl inward like this. And I'm just gonna continue this pattern of going back and forth with the rest of my hair in the back of my head. Typically, just like I do 4 rows up, 1, 2, 3, 4, I go ahead and I do 4 rows back, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. All right, I'll see you in a minute. Okay, hair is pinned from the very back to the very front. What I'm gonna go ahead and do now is I'm gonna make sure everything stays in place. So I'm gonna use these itty bitty little alligator clips in order to make sure that the back tendrils of my hair stay in place throughout today. And then I'm also gonna do just an extra little bobby pin because those hairs like to sneak out of my scarf for me. And I don't like how it looks when they sneak out of the scarf. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin everything and then just do a very, very quick light coat of hairspray to try to keep things in place and from moving too much, because this has to last all day, but then it also has to last through the night. I'm also going to make sure that around my ears, that hair is pinned back so that it stays inside the scarf nicely. So around my ears, grab those tendrils, pin those back, and make sure that the pins of the curls are pulled back too. The little alligator clips work pretty well for that as well. Pin and just slightly spray and puff. And then same thing with my top layer, just spraying very lightly and making sure that around my face, those tendrils are going to be pushed back and out of the way. They're not going to come bother me poking out while I'm doing all my chores today, and I've got plenty of chores to do today. Everything has been appropriately pushed back. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab the scarf that I'm going to use for my hair today. It's this beautiful scarf. It is vintage, which I really love. Love vintage scarves. Beautiful spring colors. It's amazing. So this is a square scarf, so there's a certain way to fold this in order to make sure that you are able to use it to cover up your hair today. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna grab one end and make it a diamond instead, and turn this diamond into a triangle by taking the opposite end towards the floor and bringing it up to the end towards the sky. Now you have a triangle, which is really awesome because this is what we're gonna use to wrap our hair. So you're going to take the longest edge of the triangle and you are going to make sure that it goes towards the nape of your neck, while the point of the triangle goes towards the top of your head. Yes, I do look like a medieval princess. Amazing. And then I'm just going to adjust it so that the scarf isn't too far down and it's not too high up. So that's going to take a second to just feel where it is on my head, and then swoop it up on each end, just like so, and make sure that the end, the little point of the scarf, is still able to touch my forehead. Okay, and it is gonna move, and that's okay. You just move and adjust, move and adjust. I'm gonna go ahead and tie a bow, boop, and pull that end of the scarf a little bit to make sure that it's in the right place. You want it trapped underneath, and then I'm gonna pull a little bit tighter and a little bit tighter to make sure everything is where it needs to be. And then I'm going to take this little end. This is the fun part. I'm going to take this little end and I'm going to tuck it underneath the little tie that I made at the top of my head. Okay, so now it's tucked underneath. You can't see it. I'm going to take the ends, tighten a little bit, and I'm going to make a bow. Now, you don't have to make a bow if you don't want to. That tends to be my favorite. And then I like to fluff out the ends a little bit because we're fashionable, we're stylish. There we go. All right, perfect. So now, again, this has to last me all day. So I'm gonna take my bobby pins and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pin it into place at the back of my head, just making a cross with the bobby pins. One side and then the other. And then by my ears, because I like my ears covered a little bit, especially where I live in the Northwest right now. It's still really, really cold. And so this gives a little bit of protection. And then I'll do behind my ears too. Make sure not to poke the holes through the scarves. Make sure you're nice and gentle with them. So this is the finished look for today with my hair. It will stay wrapped like this throughout the entire day, throughout the entire night tonight, and then tomorrow I'll take it down and I will do the 1950s wave curls, which are a little bit different, but this is a really good start for it. Day 2. As you can see, I slept in my set. I'm just gonna put on my makeup and then we're gonna brush it out together. Here we go. Now, there are a lot of bobby pins going on here, so have a receptacle. Mine is an old baby food jar because we really love collecting jars in my family. And I'm just gonna go ahead, pull out the pins that are securing the headscarf. Okay, good. And then you can see everything kind of got smushed, but no fear, that curl is still there and ready to party. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab those pins out of my hair. Okay, once all the pins are out of your hair, it's gonna look a little bit like this. You're gonna be a little bit of a Shirley Temple. It means that it worked. So if you look in the mirror and think, dear Lord, who is that crazy person staring back at me? You're on the right track. Perfect. Okay, so here's what I do. And this is a technique I've developed over quite a few years. I go ahead and I take my fingers and I comb through first, because I notice that helps break apart the curls. And for some reason, with my hair at least, it allows for a little bit more bounce to happen. Woo. So once you've got a good fro going on right here, that's when you're gonna go ahead, and I use a curling enhancer. I use Shea Moisture, and their curl enhancing smoothie is what I use, and it's just gives my curls a little bit more definition, but also smooths everything down, which is kind of nice. So I take a couple fingers like that and I mix it into my hands, and then I just go in and I scrunch to coat the bottoms of the curls and the tops of the curls and all the curls. Getting in there. I usually smooth down the nape of my neck a little bit, and then go in and put it in at the root. Woo, that bounce. Okay, so now what we're gonna go ahead and do is we need to brush out our curls. So first and foremost, I'm gonna use my comb to go ahead and brush everything out. And here's my thing. With some hairstyles, brushing more works better. With my hair, it does not work very well. With just continuing to brush and letting the curl set, it starts to droop quite a bit. So I do go ahead and brush it out a little bit and then use my fingers as a styling tool to kind of puff it up again and then brush it out and puff it up and brush it out. But I don't like to go overboard because I don't want my hair to go flat. I'm gonna make a side part. Perfect. I'm gonna just, again, you see me using my fingers, and I'm gonna take the brush and brush my ends into a certain direction. Brushing those ends into a certain direction, just to kind of uniform them a little bit. Let them grip together a little bit, and then we'll be back at it. Today I'm going to do a pretty basic hairstyle. It's just going to be my hair sitting down, pinning it into place a little bit so that it stays in place and it's nice throughout the day. I'm going to need some bobby pins and my hairbrush and a little bit of hairspray. So I'm going to take the side with less hair and I'm going to comb it back and spray it. Boop, boop, boop. Perfect. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pin it into place. I like to cross my bobby pins. I notice that that helps quite a bit. Here we go. So that that little area right there stays in place. And then you're going to have this hair back here and I'm going to brush it and take a chunk of it. Brush it all into one direction, get those ends, and then curl it in like that. And then take this bottom section right here that's poking through and do the same thing and bop it up a little bit. There we go. Take hair behind here, tuck it back under. Perfect. Okay, one side looking pretty good. Nice spiral. You can go ahead and you can pull it a little bit to give it a little bit more volume if you'd like to, shrink it up if you'd like to, it's up to you. And now we're gonna go with this crazy side. And I'm just gonna brush it out a little bit, brush it back towards the back of my head. Perfect. Kind of take some of those ends again. Brush them in, brush them in. And my hair is in layers because that gives off a nice haircut. A horseshoe haircut is what usually does the trick pretty nicely. So you are gonna be working with a lot of layers here, which can be easy or hard, just depending on how you do it. But you see I'm creating those curls and then brushing it back. And then once I feel like I've set it in a pretty good pattern, I go ahead and I just try to pin it where it's at. So one pin there, I might take a small pin and put it right here, sneak it in a little bit, just to hold that hair in place. That's all I want to do, is hold the hair in place appropriately. And if you know your hair really well and feel like you're gonna need a cross pin to keep everything in place, put a cross pin, that totally works. I know that I'm gonna need extra assistance because when do I not need extra assistance with my hair? Okay, perfect. So now I'm pretty happy with this shape. I can feel the back, I can feel that it's puffed nicely, and that by, again, using your brush to take the ends and comb them over your hand nicely so that they all go in the same direction, it's got a good puff. So now, light coat of hairspray. Make sure there aren't any flyaways. Perfect. Okay, do I look a little bit like a poodle? Yes, but I look like a very nicely groomed poodle, so there. Okay, a quick wrap up. So this is my day 3 hair. As you can see, pulled up, out of the way, completes the circle of life of my hair throughout the week before I wash it, and I do the whole cycle all over again. There are a lot of moving pieces to these hairstyles, but if you do it over 2 days and you don't stress yourself out with doing it over 1 day and then potentially getting a flop curl because your hair hasn't had enough time to set and really set those curls so that you can get nice waves and nice bounce, it can stress you out. But if you do it over 2 days, I noticed that it works really well, and that it's nice to have hair that has a little bit more hold for a day or 2 more days so that you can do an updo, such as the braids. As always, if you like this, please comment on what you'd like to see next. I'm up for plenty of suggestions, and like and subscribe so I can keep making more content. All right, have a great day. Bye.